Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, 445 million francs CFA embezzled on the project, notably the construction of the Ezeka Ngumu Road, unaccounted for 3 years after 800 million francs CFA has been dispersed to a new company to execute that project. COVID-19 cases on the rise in the west region of the Republic of Cameroon. Over 800 persons tested positive for coronavirus in just 2 months. And out of the country, 10 persons dead in a plane crash in South Sudan. The west region of the Republic of Cameroon is one of the 10 regions recording an increase in the number of persons tested positive for the coronavirus within the second phase of the pandemic. About 800 persons have been tested positive for coronavirus in about 2 months in the west region of the Republic of Cameroon. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
Recent weeks, school milieus have registered an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. The increase has been attributed to the non-respect of barrier measures by the teenagers, making them vulnerable to infection. Though aware of the high prevalence rates of the disease, these kids still need to be continuously drilled by the teachers and parents on how to stay safe. Some teachers in schools in Bafoussam, west region of Cameroon, have gone to the extent of prescribing natural remedies for their pupils. Our headmistress asked us to drink warm water. She equally asked us to eat ginger, garlic, and onions. Here at Government Bilingual High School Bafoussam, teachers and students are obliged to respect barrier measures such as the wearing of face masks and regularly washing hands with water and soap. At the entrance of the gate, their temperatures are checked. According to the principal, Maurice Quiput, the measures are meant to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The school doctor has been carrying out COVID-19 tests on campus. 10 students have been tested positive. Everyone will be tested in the days ahead. The resurgence of the pandemic is equally preoccupying health personnel in the west region of Cameroon. We have registered 2,200 COVID-19 cases and 100 deaths. The challenge we are facing now is that we registered the highest number of cases in the past 2 months, so we need to take quick action. Media men and women, health personnel and administrative heads have been urged to step up the fight by taking concrete action as far as sensitizing the public is concerned.
Cameroon's Minister of Public Health, Manauda Malachi, and other government members have been insisting and urging the population to continue respecting the anti-COVID-19 measures prescribed by government and the World Health Organization, notably the regular washing of hands with clean running water and soap, and of course the regular use of hand sanitizers, physical or social or physical distancing at least 1.5 or 2 meters away from each other, and of course the wearing of masks in public places, and added to that, coughing or sneezing in the elbow. These measures, government say we must continue to respect, all must continue to respect in order to prevent the spread of the virus, which is already in the second phase, now proving more deadly than the first. Now on to something else. two suspected thieves presented at the Mobile Intervention Police Unit here in Cameroon's economic capital, accused of having stolen a car, will be appearing in court, and they were arrested in Mabanda in the Douala 4 subdivision. In the report coming up next, Smanjika and Gabriel files in details on that and a fire incident which occurred yesterday around the Besenge neighborhood here in Douala, provoking enormous material damage. His report.
It was another ugly day for the men of the underworld who were presented by security elements this Tuesday in Bonanjo. Two men in their late 30s, suspected to be car thieves, were shown to the public. Two cars that were stolen were returned to their owners after an in-depth investigation that was done by elements of the Mobile Intervention Police Unit, GMI2 Douala. We discovered the vehicles in Mabanda in Bonaberi thanks to our investigation. The successful end of this investigation could not have been possible if not for the collaboration of the population. We once again thank the population for always being there. We are urging them to continue to collaborate with us because we don't have supernatural powers to know where a crime is being committed. On the spot, one of the car owners was glad to get back her car that left her on the 21st of February 2021. At the Feu Rouge Besenge neighborhood in Douala, it was a lady who collapsed after getting information about her residence that was destroyed by Inferno.
My friend asked she don't get something to tell me. I don't them now. I say me like I take picking for house, picking canna, picking with the house my husband Oscar. I want to see now. Oscar, I see my telephone ring now. Oscar tell me say Friday for come for. If they come in first time, I don't know to talk before. Second time call me, I pick the corner taste. Now wait, it's a fire.
We were told the fire began when no one in this residence was home. Even though the cause of the fire is still to be determined, materials damaged by the Inferno was enormous. It was thanks to the timely intervention of the Army Rescue Unit that the fire was curbed.
445 million francs CFA embezzled in the Ezeka Nkumu road construction project and still unaccounted for 3 years after, and rather 800 million francs CFA has been dispersed to another company to execute that project. For me, Armstrong Sander.
On this 83-kilometer stretch of road linking Ezeka, Makaka Ngumu in the Nyongankele division, Central region of Cameroon, the government lost some 445 million francs CFA to embezzlement in 2018, according to the senior divisional officer for the Nyongankele division, Peter Tiende. Remember the embezzlement case of 2018 to 2020. The matter is currently in court. The court is yet to rule on the fate of the enterprise which collected the over 445 million francs CFA and abandoned the project. An abandonment that sustained suffering and difficulties in circulation on inhabitants of the division. Following a repeated outcry from the local population, a new contract worth 800 million francs CFA was awarded to a different enterprise with specific instructions. The new contract had few modifications with different specifications given to the enterprise. The enterprise was asked to prioritize critical sections of the road before the arrival of the rains in March. The project is ongoing smoothly. I also went to the field to ensure that the embezzlement situation of 2018 does not repeat itself.
The fake l'histoire de ces routes.
The senior divisional officer further revealed that the project will be ready by the end of June 2021, according to information passed to him by officials of the enterprise concerned.
Avant la fin du mois de juin, s'il continue avec cet élan qu'il a sur le terrain, les routes seront complètement réfectionnées.
The SDO is also worried on the alarming nature of abandoned projects in his area of command.
J'ai constaté qu'il y avait des projets abandonnés, même dans la ville de ces.
Upon my arrival in 2018, I was shocked by the rate at which public projects were being abandoned in Ezeka on false pretext. It does not happen anywhere else in Cameroon. The senior divisional officer says he has put a stop to the habit of acquiring public contracts without the means to immediately start works before the payment of the first installment by the state.
Of Employment and Vocational Training, Orok Thomas Eyong says for a nation like Cameroon to develop today's resources must be directed to a greater extent to the molding of children in important and technical disciplines so that they can spearhead the needed change. He was speaking in Buea. Derek Jato reports.
For any society to achieve a long-term meaningful development, to Orok Thomas Eyong, Southwest Regional Delegate of Employment and Vocational Training, its resources should be directed first to this age group, the children. And this second edition of Job Creation and Self-Employment Conference is laying more practical emphasis on that. Reason why these kids from Diamandale Nursery and Primary School in Buea were the center of attraction as they showcased their know-how in care-tree services in the presence of authorities of the Southwest region and also answered questions based on their skills.
You enjoy doing it and this is your passion. Good.
It is therefore no secret that these kids here who are already generating revenue, at the time they will leave school as adults, they will certainly be employers of labor. And this drive should not only be allowed squarely on the shoulders of the Delegation of Employment and Vocational Training alone.
We are, through this medium, inviting the councils and municipalities, to consider the issues of youth unemployment as very serious when it comes to their agenda. So I'm actually inviting all the councils to join the ministry in the crusade against youth unemployment.
More than 1,000 youth took part in this second edition of Job Creation and Self-Employment Conference, organized by the Southwest Regional Delegation of Employment and Vocational Training in Buea.
Coming up, Innocent Azie tells us another side of the story concerning the first black billionaire role model to South Africans and candidate for the post of Confederation of African Football CAF president. And talking about Dr. Patrice Motsepe, he engaged in politics when he joined the African National Congress, the time Nelson Mandela became first black president in South Africa. His joining was to support the then President Nelson Mandela in his fight for the rights of black people in a corruption-free country. Innocent Azie.
In Soweto, where he was born on January 28, 1962, in the course of apartheid in South Africa, the young Patrice Motsepe grew up with his siblings in the streets but differentiated himself. He was initiated in commercial activities of his father, Ngozi Augustine Motsepe.
I grew up from a very young age working in my parents' grocery stores. And I learned about business.
It was in his father's owned spaza shop, popular with black-mind workers. It was from this shop that Motsepe learned basic business principles from his father, as well as first-hand exposure to mining. Patrice Motsepe, who had joined the ruling African National Congress, supported then-President Nelson Mandela to fight against injustice faced by the black majority from white minority.
Hola Madiba, hola. Hola Madiba, hola. Ukhona umoya wakamadiba la. Mina ngiyakuzwa lo moya lo. In 1994, when Nelson Mandela was inaugurated, it was a deeply emotional, it was a historic day, but a deeply emotional day for all of us. And I remember my wife and I, Precious, we shed a tear because I think many South Africans were very emotional. We never thought that we would live to see Mandela take that oath as president of this country.
Being part of the African National Congress that historically fought for the freedom of blacks from white minority rule, Dr. Motsepe keeps indelible exchanges he had with then-President Nelson Mandela in 1999.
We made a statement that the future of the successful, the future of the educated, the future of the wealthy in South Africa, and the future of the families of the successful and wealthy is not bright, and in fact they do not have a future if the poor and the unemployed and the marginalized have a future.
Patrice Motsepe's brighter days came following creation of Future Mining in 1994, which provided contract mining services that included the cleaning of gold dust from inside mine shafts for the Vaal Reefs gold mine. In favor of the Black Economy Empowerment Law, Patrice Motsepe battled in his mining companies, and in 2012, he was named South Africa's richest man, topping the Sunday Times annual rich list. The South African mining magnate had vision of a corruption-free society.
There's a huge duty and a huge obligation on all of us to make sure, on all of us in the business community, on all of us in the private sector, that we behave in a manner that reflects zero tolerance of corruption.
With a worth of 1,200 billion francs CFA, Patrice Motsepe had put in place a foundation to support South Africans in education, employment, and strive for the welfare of all.
Out of Cameroon, the governor of Jonglei State of South Sudan says 10 persons have died in the crash of a commercial plane in the town of Pieri. According to denied Jock Chego, 10 people, including 8 passengers and 2 pilots, lost their lives after South Supreme Airlines flight HK 4274 bound for the capital Juba took off from the town of Pieri in Jonglei State and crashed. The director of Juba International Airport, Kirkul, said the South Supreme Airlines flight went down immediately after taking off, and that was at 5 p.m. local time. And this is the second such incident reported involving an aircraft operated by the regional airline, and the first occurred in 2017 when a South Supreme Airline plane caught fire and made a crash landing, but there were no casualties. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for joining us in Talking Point. Our guest today, gender activist Von Quinta. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Babila Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here once more.
Thank you for taking the pains to come over here from Buea in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. How's the town of Buea?
I left Buea this afternoon. The town it's rocking. I can say that it's rocking. Yeah. We know about certain, for some time now, a couple of years now, during the week, things change. For example, Mondays are kind of timid. Tuesdays, pick up. Wednesdays and stuff like that. But I can say that the town is rocking.
All right, thank you for coming. Now we're going to talk about issues concerning women, and this year the women will be celebrated on the 8th of March during the International Women's Day under the theme Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World.
Exactly.
What's your take about this theme?
I think it's a very I think that the theme was chosen in relation to the context, the COVID-19 pandemic, and in addition, based on the fact that the women worldwide have been working so hard to achieve gender equality. And so I think that the theme carries the fact that this struggle in achieving gender equality remains, and then they are faced with the pandemic. Now they have to deal with this challenge while striving to achieve the goal of an equal planet 50-50 by 2030.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the struggle for equality in as far as leadership matters are concerned?
Yeah, naturally, if I could say, so far, because that's how it's been, what I'm trying to say is there has been a certain, there has been gender inequalities as from forever, gender inequalities. So the International Women's Day, yes, so that's why I said naturally, but we have to, it has to change. In 1908, this issue came up when over 15,000 women protested in the streets of New York against gender disparities, including unequal pay. So now, 3 years later on in 1911, women decided to celebrate International Women's Day, and the United Nations also began celebrating this day on March 8th in 1975, the International Women's Day. So it's a very significant celebration for women in Cameroon and the world at large.
Yeah, women have always been clamoring for more leadership positions, but this seems not to be coming, even though some women are popping up and pushing right to the top. Recently we have the first woman who came at the top of the World Trade Organization, the Nigerian former Minister of Finance, who is now leading that organization. And there are other women like that who are coming up in Parliament, coming up at the Senate, coming up in different organizations. But
and that's actually one of the reasons why we have this commemoration, to set aside this day for women like that to be honored, for women to gather together and honor those who have achieved, have made some great impact in the communities, and also to brainstorm, to point out issues concerning them, and to try to deliberate and brainstorm on how they could address such issues and way forward. So it's very important that this day is commemorated so that women can mobilize themselves together and address issues concerning them, including recognizing their achievements.
All right. What are some of the specific problems that women are facing because of COVID-19? COVID-19, of course, is affecting everybody, but women seem to be having some specific areas where they are affected in that regard as women.
Exactly. First of all, we want to talk about the fact that women are not equally represented in crisis management and decision-making processes. That kind of projects the height of discrimination and gender inequalities, which is a cry in our communities, and which is something that we've been working on to ensure that it is addressed in order for us to achieve gender equality. That's just one. You have other issues like loss of sources of livelihood. Economically, our women make up in some places over 70% of the population in the informal sector. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they have lost a lot economically, and it has affected them. And unfortunately, these are the same women who do not have the same privileges or they don't have equal opportunities to resources, like when it comes to loans. You find out that women, they face more difficulties in getting loan offers as compared to men, so that they can be able to recover from the impact of the COVID pandemic.
What explains that disparity in terms of opportunities for men and for women?
There are a lot. First of all, we start with disregard for women's rights, and like I said, the inequalities that have been put in place by the nature of our societies. The nature of our societies, for example, in our Cameroonian context, the nature of our society gives men more power over women. Men are the ones who have been more educated. Men are the ones who the laws protect when it comes to securing properties that they can use to secure loans. For example, land. You find out that women do not even have as much, they don't have as much privileges or access or opportunities to resources that they can use as collateral when it comes to requesting for loans.
Right.
So those are some of the factors that cause this inequality when it comes to the economic sector.
And earlier you mentioned the rights of women that are still being trampled upon by many, including those in authority.
Seriously. The disregard for women's rights is still a serious issue in our communities. I mean, look at a case where, for example, like I said, in the case of, let's take an example of the loan. The disregard for women's right to own properties would lead to that inequality.
And considering the state of affairs in the country, it would appear many women are not coming up to take up some leadership positions.
I think that there's been some comparatively, there's been some progress. We've had more women in leadership positions in the parliament, whereas we are yet to see quite a...
For example, during the regional elections, and right now all the regional presidents are women, and women are not even found in the regional executives. Very few of them.
Exactly. So it remains a challenge. It remains a challenge for women representation to be balanced in leadership positions. Is that what you're trying to find out?
Women seem not to be pushful. That's what I'm asking.
No, I don't think so. I think that there are a lot of factors that contribute to that. For example, having the capacity. You know that we grew up in a community where women did not have an equal opportunity to be educated like men. So it's not because we just want women in a leadership position that you're just going to carry a woman and put her there because she wants to be in a leadership position. She also has to be knowledgeable enough. So we are saying that if we educate women more, give them the opportunities. Some women are there playing double role. They are housewives making children, but yet they are also expected to take up leadership roles, as in going to professional schools like in NAM, so that they can come out as great leaders, right? So you see that there are some challenges that play against the woman, so that the woman cannot really meet up. But however, you still have some barriers that are coming from, for example, the government. You still have some barriers that are coming from the societies. So
and
it's
cultural settings.
The cultural settings.
Now, I listened to a female civil society leader today, and she was throwing the ball back in the court of the women and saying, women, if you want something, you have to position yourself at the right place and achieve it.
It
you
depends.
must go
If the
for
resources
it. You
are
must
there,
fight for it.
Yes, women want to fight for it. If the resources are there, how many women are given the opportunities to go back to school? How many women have the financial capacity to educate themselves to a certain standard? How many women are there who society, their men or their husbands will permit them to go back to school and not divorce them and things like that? So it does not necessarily just depend on the women. There are a whole lot of factors that play against women having leadership roles and leadership positions. And that's why it's very significant. This theme this year is going to provide an opportunity for women to deliberate way forward, for government officials to sit together with women to deliberate on how they can reduce these inequalities so that women also can begin to dream to have equal representation in leadership positions.
As they go into deliberate, they will certainly be listening to you people, gender activists, you who are on the ground, talking with these women, meeting with these women, and observing the situation from a critical point of view. What are the strategies that you can put on their table to deliberate on?
The first thing I want to state here is that we are not going to be speaking for the women. We want every sector to create access for the women to speak themselves. Well, as women's rights organizations, we can mobilize the women, but our strategy is for the women to speak up themselves, first of all. When the women speak up themselves, then we can also create opportunities for women to be capacitated, for their skills or their knowledge to be built so that they can be able to consider taking key leadership roles.
Some of the women listening to you now may not really see the feasibility of what you're saying because of maybe the situation in which you find yourself. Imagine an IDP who fled violence in the northwest and southwest regions, and she's in Douala, she's in Yaoundé, she's in some other parts of the country, and she's very vulnerable, and there's a man who is trying to say, okay, this is where you can stay, but I'm going to be doing this with you, and so on and so forth. And then in that kind of position.
And that's true, and those are some of the challenges we still face that are heightening. They are heightening they are creating more barriers, making it almost impossible for women to achieve the respect of their rights and to achieve gender equality. What I want to say here is that one of the solutions that women are, I should say women, because here I'm like the voice of the women, but it's an end to impunity. Can you imagine that? We have cases where girls and women girls get raped, children get raped, but before you know it, the perpetrators are back out in the streets. So it's a serious issue. It makes them not want to speak out. It makes them not want to believe, not want to hope. So it's a serious issue. So it's when we're looking at way forward and solutions to reduce a certain challenges and barriers, we should take into consideration that impunity is playing a very big part in ensuring that these women and girls are hopeless, leaving them hopeless, so much so that they don't even want to speak up when they are violated, so much so that they don't even want to listen to, or if you try to mobilize them, they don't want to come, they don't want to attend any program, they don't want their capacity to be built because they feel like there's no justice. So justice is one of the key issues that should be addressed if we really have to achieve gender equality. And
husbands too have to do something. Husbands.
So you're saying husbands have to do something?
Yes, of course, to help the women. Earlier you said that there are some husbands
who will
not allow their wives to go back to school and obtain a master's degree, a PhD, maybe because they have just a first school leaving and so on.
It's a collective action. Husbands, entrepreneurs, the government. So it's everybody. It's an inclusive approach that we need to consider if we must curb gender inequalities.
And I'm going precise on husbands because this one is something that is right there in the home, right there in the homes.
Oh yeah. If you must ask me, gender inequality is very high in the home. Look at the homes, right? If, for example, I know a home that they have a one car. The wife and the husband has one car. That wife only has to drive that car maybe 1% of the time. But, you know, the husband gets to drive like 99%. So if you want me to talk about husbands, trust me, there are a lot. Talk about cooking, those gender roles that put women in charge of certain responsibilities that, you know, do not favor, well, I don't want to say favor, but that puts the man in a dominant role. Talk about cooking, talk about primary care giving to children in the homes and all of that. So, yeah, you want to talk about husband? Trust me, if I list them, I hope to get back home safe tonight.
Whatever the case, husbands help your wives to bring out.
But thank God, my husband is a very
considerate.
considerate. My husband is even a gender activist, so I'm proud to say that. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Quinta Fon, gender activist. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Husbands, help your wives. Goodbye. Equinox Wise up next, live from Yaoundé.